Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? My name is Jesse here from the REI Conversion Podcast. Today, I've got a special guest here. His name is Sean, and we're going to be talking about his land business and how he's using an answering service or a call service or a call center, whatever you want to call it, to help him with his acquisitions of his properties. So we're going to be diving into the service that he's using and how it's benefited his business. Now, this episode is brought to you by REI Conversion. If you are looking for a system to help you centralize and streamline your land investing business so you can set up to scale, look no further than REI Pebble. REI Pebble will help you with things like your mailer, document generation, lead tracking, and a lot of other tools inside, including now our newly launched feature of being able to research your parcels inside of Pebble, no longer having to log on to the county's GIS system. So there's a lot of time-saving tools all baked in to REI Pebble. If you'd like, you can book me for a completely free demo. It's a one-on-one call with me. If you head over to reiconversion.com/Pebble and hit the little button at the top that says book a demo. Anyways, I hope you get tons of value out of this episode here. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, everybody? I've got Sean here on as a guest today. Sean, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Jesse.
Sean, thanks for coming on the show here. You are one of our Pebble users, and you've always been a great supporter of ours. So I just want to say, first of all, thank you for all your support. So today, we're here to talk about answering services and how you use answering services for your land business. So first of all, you are using a service called Patlive. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. Awesome. So let me ask you this. What made you decide to use an answering or a call? I don't know what you guys call it, a call center, or an answering service, or
Call center.
Call center. What sort of what was the sort of decision making process like, and why did you kind of go down that route?
So in my case, like a lot of land investors, certainly when they start out, it's a side gig, and it's still a side gig for me. Now I do put a lot of time into it, but time's at a premium with having a W-2 job, and I also have another business that I'm starting, have a family. And the key for me was I needed someone. I was losing money by not spending the money on a call center. So I wasn't answering calls when they need to be answered. I wasn't getting back quickly, getting it into the information into the CRM, into Pebble, or when I started out, it was just Google Sheets, but now Pebble. It wasn't happening. So I was losing business, and it's a classic, you got to be willing to spend some money to make money. So that I reached that point about spring of this year and started using Patlive, and I've been satisfied with it. I think it's been a good service.
Awesome. I mean, like someone like myself, I don't use a service like that, and I'm really interested to learn more genuinely about this. So, first of all, Patlive doesn't specialize in land, right? So, was there much training needed? I mean, what's the onboarding or training process like to work with a land investor?
Yeah, that was, Chris, I had to learn that when I signed up with them to some extent. I had an idea, but I wasn't expecting, you do have to be very specific. You write a very clear script. I went through several iterations, and I experimented. I would just call them up to see what my experience was as a user. And and so I refined a script over 3 or 4 iterations. So at this point, I'm getting the information I need. The callers being handled and treated the right way to my satisfaction. And you're relying, of course, on the Patlive management and training to have the discipline to do the same thing every time, and also use a little bit of common sense. So that's what that's been like. It's unlike having, let's say, I know you've had people on, what was the name? You had the virtual assistant land VA for you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, so there you have someone that's more like a partner in a sense in running the business as the VA. These guys will Patlive will do just exactly what you tell them and pretty much nothing more.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, when you sort of first launched that, and you mentioned here you had an initial script that you wrote out and you detailed out, and you made a few iterations along the way. Obviously, that's going to happen, but can you sort of dig back into your memory a little bit? What were some of the bottlenecks or reasons that caused you to have to iterate and sort of refine your script?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good
I know I'm
question.
putting you on the spot here,
No,
so
that's okay. That's okay. So, for example, I mean, I suppose you can get callers, or you will get callers who they really don't want to give any information. They didn't know what they were getting into, or they didn't know exactly who they'd be talking to. And when they figure that it's not the person that was on the letter, um, yeah, that was one iterations where some of those
mm,
people just never want to talk to you again. Others, at least you could maybe get enough to get back in touch with them, even if they don't answer all the questions about their land, for example. So that was, you
right.
sort of had branches. If they say no, here, follow this flow. If they say yes, follow this flow. If they give you this information, branch off to this talk track. So there was several branches that just I had to sort of evolve over time.
Right, right, got you. Okay. And on the like practical and technical side of things, you're building out this script. How did you do it? Was it literally on a Word document? Did you use some sort of like Miro or like some sort of mind
Yeah,
mapping thing, or what? How did you do it?
yeah. I just use what's the Google software that's the equivalent of PowerPoint. Um,
Oh, is it slides?
yeah, Google Slides. Yeah.
Okay.
So I just
Okay.
put it on a Google slide. I put little, little talk boxes and arrows and branches, and I just spent probably an hour or two thinking through iterations, re-editing. You send it into their point of contact who's managing the receptionist. They go through. It takes them about a day or so, I believe, to translate that script into whatever format they might be using the call centers, and
Right.
then you're live, and you can iterate that script with them anytime. You just resend another one and say, hey, replace the old one with this one.
Now I'm assuming like with the iterations that you're doing, they're giving you a chance to listen to some of these recordings, and that's why you can sort of understand where you need to sort of beef up a little bit or change.
Yeah, and the way I did that, and it's a good question. Maybe they let you have a practice run, but I just after they told me it was live, I just called Pat live. I called my number and see what happened.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Right. That's an easy way to do it. It's sort of like
yeah,
sending yourself your own mailer to make sure you're actually getting those, right?
yeah. That
Um,
was that was beefing up my lead numbers too by doing that.
okay, so you have the script. You had to go through a few iterations here. Um, Sean, I know a lot of land investors like to they like to keep their information secret to them. Or would you be able to at least explain us the basic flow of the call, how you sort of structure things? And this is specifically for seller leads. Is that correct?
That's right. I started with a basic. I gave them background on the company first of all, so the receptionist at least they might have some context about who they're answering the phone for. So let them
Right.
know they're a vacant land investment company buying residential and recreational land across the United States, providing reliable and easy closings, quick cash to sellers. So that's just for the receptionist context, and they're not totally in a vacuum. Um,
Right.
and then after their initial greeting, they just asked, "Did you receive an offer from us in the mail?" Of course, you would hope that it's yes,
Yeah.
and I'll start with the no first of all. But if it's no, if they're calling for some other reason or they don't want to reveal that, then just get them to elicit the information by saying, "How can I help? Would you like a follow up call?" If yes, get the contact info. If no, okay, thanks for your crank phone call, and we'll see you later. And if the answer is yes, they got an offer, then we go through not all of them, but just a few of the basics. Are you the owner? Can I have the offer code? Do you know of any issues with back taxes? Can you tell me anything about utilities and access? Um,
Mm,
and then finally, the question we never want to forget to ask is, do you have any other properties you'd like to sell? And
Right.
that's worked several times for me where I got onto a buyer or a seller with two or more properties and actually ended
Wow.
up purchasing those. Whereas if you hadn't asked, you might not have never known.
That's
And
right.
and then they kind of close out with I'll pass on all this information. We'll get back in touch with you within 2 working days, and and thank you for stopping by. So that's real simple. That's kind of the basic flow.
I love that. And obviously, like, time matters for you guys specifically. I mean, you guys are paying pretty much by the minute. So now, one of the things that I do want to reemphasize is the fact that, yeah, you do ask if they have other properties for sale. Again, this has always been a plus for a lot of people. You never know until you ask, like you said. Um, okay, so my other question here for you, and thanks for sharing that, how your sort of call flow works. On average, I mean, how many minutes does that typically take?
One of the things I was trying to do is keep it short
Yeah.
because you don't want to you don't want to you don't want to try people's patience. So that can all be done basically in less than a minute, and of course you're paying as well for Pat
Right.
Live minutes. Now
Right.
I don't think I've tapped out yet on the basic subscription plan I'm on with minutes, but it's
Yeah.
something to consider. I'm not the highest volume land investor out there, but if you're very high volume, you'll want to you'll probably want to time what you think it's going to take so that you're at least minimizing your costs. But
Yeah.
I would just say
Absolutely.
it's been well worth the time savings and the information I now get into Pebble as a result of using the receptionist.
That's awesome to hear. So Sean, is there, like, there's sometimes a belief like, oh, it's an answering service picking up. People wouldn't like that, but I feel like that is actually a very very small percentage. Am I correct by saying that?
Yeah, that I don't know what the stats are, and I do know I didn't like voicemail. That's what I used at the beginning. Like a lot of us had a
Yep.
recorded professional voicemail. Started out was like a minute 30, and then I was like, "Whoa, that's way too long to make people listen," and cut it down to 30 seconds. And then I realized I wasn't getting enough information, and
Mm,
uh, and you just can't. You don't have that interaction and follow up. So if something's missed, like you tell them leave your contact info, but they didn't leave a phone or an email, yet now have someone that can say, all right, we got everything. Can you tell me your email again or whatever? So that human interaction, I think, does lead to more capture, but that's totally unscientific.
sure, sure. And I'm assuming the way the workflow that you have it right now is that you've got your intake website and then you have a separate form for Patlive. How is Patlive entering that information right now?
Yeah, so they email that to me, and I know, Jess, you just set up that functionality in Pebble where it can
Yeah.
load right up into your leads. I haven't set
Yeah.
that up myself yet. That's something I'm looking forward to doing. But so right now, I get an email. I just have a Zap that sends it, and then I cut and
Right.
paste where I need it, and I've
Okay.
got it
Yeah, and
laid out.
that's something
Mhm.
easy enough for us to be able to help you with that. And as Sean was mentioning, one of the things that we just launched for those of you listening and are interested, that are Pebble lead forms. So now you can literally build out a form just for Pat Live. You can embed it on your own buying website as a separate page, or even a Google site, doesn't matter. And you can drive
Yeah,
Pat Live into there. And this form specifically built for Pat Live. And one of the great things is, as soon as you type in the name, it'll actually pull up that property right in front of them. They can actually hopefully save and end up saving more time by just confirming the information inside of your database, because all of the data that all the properties that you mailed out to are sitting inside of your Pebble account. So
yeah,
I'd love to get you on that as well, Sean, and learn to see how you guys are continuing to use that. So right now you're doing it through email. They're submitting it through email to you, and that's coming. You've got some automations, and then it comes into Pebble as well for you to manage.
that's right.
Um, Now, let me ask you this: what is the percentage of properties that you end up picking up come from phone calls and come from actually specifically Pat Live?
Yeah, uh,
If
I
it's
would
just a
say,
ballpark,
yeah, I would say from Pat Live now it's probably something like 60%.
wow, wow, okay, so it's
Yeah, then
definitely making a
the
difference for
others
you.
are through one of your websites, my seller website,
Yep.
and then the others are talking to sellers and and they have more properties.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Um, Let me ask you this. At this point, it sounds like you're pretty like you're pretty good with what's going on. If you had um, something that you could change, or something along the process in terms of working with Patlive, is there anything that you would say that's on your wish list or that they could do
Yeah,
better on?
I think based on the stage I'm in the business, Pat Live is fine for now. I
Yeah.
am starting to look ahead in 2022, though. I actually met with, based on listening to your podcast, I talked to Land VA for you. I think
Okay.
that's the direction I'm going to be going, where I have more
Yep.
of a partner who understands the business as I
Yep.
grow. But right
Yep.
now, for the scale I'm at, Pat Live is fine. I'd say at a certain phase in the business, it's something to consider, but it's
Yeah.
probably, yeah, I'll grow it at some point if that's where you're taking your business.
Awesome, awesome. And I'll make sure to include that in our show notes. It's also available if you go to reiconversion.com into the resources under the recommended tools. Now, there's a new service we just recently put on there, Sean. I don't know if you know, but the folks over at Your Land TC, that's TC stands for Transaction Coordinator.
Yeah,
I hear they're a great team as well. And if you're
I'd look at
interested,
them.
and if the listeners are interested, if you go through our link and mention REI Conversion, there is a 10% lifetime discount with them. So do check that out. I do know that
Yeah,
they do phone calls and they do sort of like you said, it's more of a partnership. So
yeah,
and
that's on my to do list to check them out too before I make a decision on that. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah. And I'd love to hear more about that. We're also going to have them on the show and talk a little bit more about their service as well. So it's great that you guys are sort of utilizing. I always talk about when it comes to scaling a business, there's two things you have to leverage: it's software and it's people. And this is sort of the people side of things. There's a lot of things that software or machine cannot do at this point, and these are the type of things, answering calls, having that person to person conversation. Although I remember listening a couple of years back when Google had that voice call. That thing was creepy. I mean, it sounded like
yeah,
it was doing the ums and uhs like a regular person. And anyways, I don't remember too much about that, but maybe we'll get into that point one day. But for now, having these third-party services, I will mention these in the show notes, so that you guys can make sure you find them as well. Now, um, is there anything that you would like to warn others who are thinking, or not warn, just kind of give heads up to others who are thinking about trekking down this path of using a call center or a call service like yours?
yeah. I think it's related to what I was just saying, which is you got to understand the limitations. You probably have someone on there that doesn't understand the land business, and so as they're interacting, they're not going to be either taking advantage of some of their information they're getting and having the right sort of follow-ups, or recording it the way you'd want necessarily. So you do have a relatively untrained person with respect to land, so that's a downside. um, and I would just say you're going to be bouncing around to different receptionists, so some are going to be better than others, so your quality control is kind of out of your control. So those are the
Yeah.
things to be aware of. But on the whole, I think it's a big step forward from using voicemail.
That's awesome to hear. Just to sum things up, some of the key things that I took away from this episode is, Sean, it looks like using an answering service has helped you buy back a lot more time. You don't need to hang around the phone. You don't need to do any qualifying. You don't need to waste time doing that. And it seems like it totally, going with this service, an answering service, totally outweighs all those things. So that's a key thing. One of the key things that you also, I think, mentioned was the fact to make sure you ask if there is a second property. It looks like this has served you very well, just having a chat with them to see if they have other properties available, making sure you include that into your script. And then I guess third of all is test your script. Listen to it like you did. Call yourself, and see how you like it. And I guess as you sort of get those leads coming in, iterate along the way until you get to the point where you like it. And sorry, go
I,
ahead.
w- I would add on and take advantage of the automation that you all have just provided in Pebble to
I
upload that
appreciate that,
information.
Sean.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we continue to try to strive is to kind of help streamline and then help with automation. So, we can centralize that business, allow you to run it from anywhere easily. So,
Right.
Sean, I really appreciate you coming on here, being super transparent about what you're doing with your call service. It's been super valuable for me, understanding how you guys are, again, taking advantage of a service like this. I will leave the show notes for a lot of these resources. If you head over to reiconversion.com/podcast, find this episode here with Sean Callahan. Sean, thank you very much again for coming on to this podcast episode.
Yeah, my pleasure, Jesse, and keep up the great work. I love your products.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Sean. Cheers. Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.